Not yet? Oh, sweet. Hello, 7th period. How are we doing today? Whoa! Much enthusiasm. Love it. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to see you here today, this awesome Thursday afternoon. I'm so excited that you're here. I have the privilege of introducing our next guest, Jamila Woods. I'm so pumped. Before I do so, just a few shout-outs and thank yous. I want to say thank you so much to the Fremd boosters. If your family member is a booster, please let them know how thankful we are. None of this could happen without them. We also want to say thank you to our tech crew in the back. They are awesome. Thank you so much. Making sure these amazing people are heard and are seen. We appreciate it. And lastly, of course, thank you to all of you for being awesome and attentive audience members. We really, really appreciate your respect and attention from students. Are just the very best of students, honestly. So like I said, though, I have the privilege of introducing Jamila Woods today for all of you this hour. Hailing from Chicago, this Brown University graduate is known as a singer, songwriter, and a poet. She is the Associate Artistic Director of Young Chicago Authors, where she helps organize the largest poetry festival in the world, Louder Than a Bomb. Her poetry is included in the anthologies The Breakbeat Poets, New American Poetry in the Age of Hip-Hop, Courage, Daring Poems for Gutsy Girls, and The Uncommon Core, Contemporary Poems for Learning and Living. She's also a singer, like I mentioned, and her next album comes out this May. Be sure that you check it out. We also have copies of her book, The Breakbeat Poets Volume 2, Black Girl Magic, for sale today for $20. So if you hear something today that moves you, please consider coming up to purchase a copy of that book for yourself. And now, without further introduction, please join me in welcoming to the stage Jamila Woods.
Hey everybody, how y'all feeling? 7th period. So thank y'all so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Just gonna read some poems, sing some songs like you heard in my bio. I'm a poet and I also am a singer-songwriter. I also am a teaching artist. I work at Young Chicago Authors. So I hope that this can be a conversation in addition to a performance. So I'll probably read and share some things and then pause throughout and see if y'all have any questions or things that you want to talk about as we go. Sound cool? Yeah. Awesome. So to start out, a lot of the poems that I write a lot about my family. I write a lot about my neighborhood. So these first few poems that I'm going to share have to do with that. I'm also a very visual person, so to kind of remind me of the order of my poems and just to give fun visuals, there's some visuals that go along with it. This being the first one, that is little baby me and my dad. And so this first poem is about my dad, and as you can see, his forehead is absolutely huge. And so that is what this poem is about. It's called Daddy Dozens. My daddy's forehead is so big, we don't need a dining room table. My daddy's forehead is so big, his hat size is equator. So big, it's a 5 head. Tyra Banks burst into tears when she seen my daddy's forehead. My daddy's forehead got its own area code. My daddy's baseball cap got stretch marks. My daddy's pillowcase got craters. His eyebrows need GPS to find each other. My daddy's forehead lives in 2 time zones. Planets confuse my daddy's forehead for the sun. Couch cushions lose quarters in the wrinkles in my daddy's forehead. My daddy's so smart, he falls asleep with the movie on and wake up as soon as the credits start to roll. My daddy's so smart, he performed surgery on his own ingrown toenail. Mama was not impressed, but my daddy got brains. My daddy know exactly how to drive me to my friend's house without looking at no map. My daddy born here. He's so smart, he know the highways like the wrinkles in his forehead. He know the free clinics like the gray hairs on his big old head. My daddy's so smart, he wear a stethoscope and a white coat. My daddy drives to work in a minivan only slightly bigger than his forehead. That's just how my daddy rolls. My daddy got swag. My daddy danced to single ladies in the hallway. My daddy drink a small coffee, cream and sugar. My daddy drink a whole can of Red Bull. My daddy eat a whole pack of sour Skittles and never had a cavity. My daddy's so smart. He got a pull-out couch in his office. Got a mini fridge there too. Got a cell phone and a pager and an email address where I can leave him messages when he's not at home. My daddy's not home. Mama saves a plate that turns cold. But when my daddy does come home, he got an office in his bedroom too. Computer screen, night light. Mama says she can't sleep right, but my daddy got work. My daddy at work, at home, in the attic, with the TV on, in the dark, from the front yard, through the windows, you can see him working, glass flickering. My house got its own forehead, glinting, sweaty in the evening, while my daddy at work, at home, in his own area code, a whole other time zone. Thank you. So I grew up in an area of Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, in an area called Beverly. And if you know anything about the south side of Chicago, it's a predominantly black neighborhood, except, at least when I was growing up, one of the only areas of the south side where it wasn't mostly black people was Beverly. And so when my family moved there, it was a little bit of a culture shock. Not just like moving to a new place, but also the ways that people perceived me differently growing up, I think because of what they thought of Beverly and then what they thought of me because of that. And so this is a picture of Beverly. I think it's a really good example of why Beverly is perceived the way it is. This is a castle that, Beverly is traditionally an Irish immigrant neighborhood, and the story is that there was like this Irish prince who moved to Chicago and set up, wanted to move to Chicago, but he wanted his girlfriend to come with him, who was like a princess or something. And so he built her this castle so that she'd feel comfortable moving with him. And so there's just this castle across the street from Walgreens. It's kind of random. So you might see why people think Beverly is like this really fancy place. And so this is a poem, it's called Beverly, Huh? And it's about, well, you'll see. Beverly, huh? You must be made of money. Your parents must have grown on trees. Bet your black is tinged with green. Bet you sleep on bags of it. Bet your Barbies climb it. Bet you never wanted. Bet you never had to ask. Bet you golf. Bet you tennis. Bet you got a summer house. Bet you got a credit card for your 5th birthday. Bet you played with bills for toys. Bet you chew them up for dinner. Bet you spit your black out like tobacco. That's why you talk so. Bet you listen to Green Day. Bet you ain't never heard of Al. Bet your daddy wears a robe around the house. Bet his hands are soft as a frog's belly. Bet your house is on a hill. Bet the grass is always freshly cut. Bet you feel like a princess. Bet the police protect your house. Bet you know their first names. Bet your house has 100 rooms. Bet a black lady comes to clean them. So there's this other poem. I think I have ordered a little bit. So this next poem, has anyone ever been to a White Hand Pantry? They kind of went out a bit. Yeah, White Hand Pantry. So I don't know if they're still in business. In Beverly, this is now a 7-Eleven, but back in the day, this was right next to my school, my grammar school, and I would definitely obviously go there for all the zebra cakes, all of the, the necessities. And so this is a true story about something that happened at my beloved White Hand Pantry. It's called Hustle for White Hand Pantry. Beverly be the only South Side you don't fit in. Everybody in your neighborhood, color of white hen. Your brown bag Tupperware lunch don't fill you. After school, you cross the street, count quarters with white friends. You love 25-cent zebra cakes mom would never let you eat. You learn to white lie through white teeth at white hen. Oreos in your palm, perm in your hair. Everyone's Irish in Beverly, you just missing the white skin. Pray they don't notice your burnt toast, unwondered bread. You be the brownest egg ever born from the white hen. Pantry in your chest where you stuff all the black in. Distract from the syllables in your name with a white grin. Keep your consonants crisp, your coffee milked, your hands visible. Never touch the holiday painted windows of white hen. You made that mistake, scratched your initials in the paint. An unmarked Crown Victoria pulled up full of white men. They grabbed your wrist and wouldn't show you a badge. The manager clucked behind the counter, thick as a white hen. They told your friends to run home, but called the principal on you, and you learned black sins cost much more than white ones. So just one more before I check in and see how y'all are feeling. So as you know, I've kind of been talking about in some of the poems, Chicago is a very segregated city, and I think a lot of the roots of some of the issues that are wrong with Chicago stem from that. But there's also a lot of beauty about Chicago, and so there's kind of always a lot of tension and when I'm writing about wanting to communicate the beauty, but also own the problems. And so this is a song that I wrote that kind of speaks to that kind of complicated love I have for Chicago, and it's called LSD, for Lakeshore Drive, which is the picture. A body of water inside me reminds me of oceans, though I've never known one. Born by a cold one, it's only a small one compared to the coast. I prefer it to most. I like water that don't burn my eyes when they open. I won't let you criticize my city like my skin. It's so pretty. If you don't like it, leave it alone. You gotta love me like I love the lake. You wanna love me better, love the lake. You wanna love me better, love the lake. You gonna love me better, love the lake. You didn't think I really had it like that. You ain't think we really had it like that. They didn't think we really had it like that. Matter of fact, we can swim in it. I know you wanna get on the highway, highway, baby. Look at it my way, baby. See, we can fly away, baby. And we don't ever leave the ground. No, 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 no. So, maybe we could lift up the lights a little bit. Do anyone have questions, any reactions, thoughts, in response to what you heard so far? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So what's the hardest part of the writing process for you when you're writing your poems?
You said when I'm writing a...
When you're writing your poems?
Oh, when writing my poems, yes. Okay, so what's the hardest part of my writing process when I'm writing poems? That's a really good question. I think a lot of times starting the poem is the hardest thing for me. Because I kind of walk around and in my notes app in my phone, I'll write down, I have ideas for poems all the time. Like, oh, I want to write a poem about this little interaction I saw on the train, or I want to write a poem about, comparing my hair to this thing or something. But then when I actually sit down to write the poem, I'm like, how do I do that? And so sometimes to help with that, and it helps being a teaching artist, is I'll sometimes give myself a limitation or like a prompt to make it easier. And so for example, in that poem I read about White Hen Pantry, I like to use that form. It's called a hustle because every last word is repeated throughout the poem. So I know if you heard it said like, white friends or white hen or white skin or white grin, and kind of like repeated throughout. So sometimes when I have a form or like a structure, then that makes it easier for me to start writing. But that's definitely the hardest part for me. Yeah. Anything else? Other questions? Oh yeah, this side's going on fire.
What advice do you have for people who want to write poems?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what advice for people who want to write poems? I would say to read poems. I think that's really useful to like find poetry that you like and that you feel like you relate to and read it, because I think at least I had an impression from how I learned about poetry as a young person that it wasn't really for me. I didn't really read poems that I saw myself in or like that I could relate to. But once I started reading poems that I did, I could be inspired by that. But also I get inspired about like a lot of things that aren't poetry too. So later on, like I have this poem that's inspired by visual art, and there's a lot of poems that I write like off of songs. And so really just not being afraid to be inspired by something, because a lot of times there's like this idea like you have to be original, you have to like come up with like all of your own stuff, has to be totally new. But I think especially when you're just starting out, it's totally okay to be inspired by someone. You can write a poem after someone that's kind of borrows their first line and then makes it your own. And so I think that's a good piece of advice I would say, is just to you can let yourself be inspired by things, and borrow from things that inspire you. Anything else? Yeah, right here.
Were you the singer Sunday Candy?
Yes, I was. I am, I guess. I'm still here, yes. Yeah, that was, I really like the story of that song because that's Nico Segal, who made the instrumental for that song, he titled the instrumental Sunday Candy. And so that's a really good example of like, I didn't know what I was gonna write about, but like I used the title of that song as a prompt. And what that made me think of was like my grandma, and like also, well actually I didn't think about my grandma, that was later. Chance brought that into it. I was thinking about like Sunday Candy, like Sunday Crush, and then Chance kind of took that and like made it about a different type of Sunday love. And so I think that was a good example of like each person kind of taking a prompt from the last person and being inspired and adding on to an idea. So yeah, thank you. Up here in the middle. If we have time at the end, maybe, but I don't want to take away from the time here. Yeah, right here. Yeah, that's really cool that you wrote about it. Thank you. I'm going to read that poem a little bit later, but that poem is basically almost like a manifesto, like a poem that is writing about like what's important to me in my work and what I like to write about. And a lot of it is this idea of I want all of the things that I write to be useful, the idea of art having a use to it. Because I don't know if you've ever seen a piece of art where you're just like, I don't know, like, my little brother could have drawn this and, when he was 3. Or like, just something that like you feel like doesn't have a use to you. And maybe that would have a use to someone else. But to me, I want the art that I create to be healing or, teaching someone something about the world that they might not have experienced, but they can see through my perspective. Or giving someone permission to think about their own life in a certain way. So that poem is really just saying that I'm thinking about the utility or the usefulness of my work. And that's actually a really good transition to what I'm gonna kind of go into next. So we'll do some more reading if that's cool, and then I'll check back in a little bit. So there's a lot of poems, speaking of Black Girl art. For a while, I had a really big afro, and I was writing a lot of poems inspired by my hair and black hair. And so I'm gonna read a few of those now. And the first series that I started writing was rewriting the book of Genesis, because I was raised in the church, and a lot of my inspiration comes from like gospel music, like Sunday Candy or Holy, but also from like the stories that I learned growing up in church. So this is like rewriting the book of Genesis as if it were about black hair, and it's called How Our Hair Got This Way. They forgot to write down the part where Adam and Eve were created bald. And after they ate the apple, they became ashamed of the nakedness of their heads. Eve tried everything: wet dirt, dried leaves, petals of flowers without names. Nothing stuck. And when God came down, he saw their heads stained with mud and knew they had disobeyed him. Adam said it was all Eve's fault for listening to that damn snake. God pulled the snake from the grass and stretched it so thin it broke into hundreds of tiny coils. He piled them on Eve's head. Now you can listen to the snake forever, but the snake won't listen to you, not even to heat, not even to gravity. God put some coils on Adam's head too, but told him his would fall out over time as punishment for snitching. This next poem, does anyone in here use coconut oil? Yeah. I just heard, oh my God, from over there. It's like, mood, that's me. I love coconut oil, so this is kind of like an ode to coconut oil. It's called Coconut Oil Kind of Woman, and it's after Sandra Cisneros. Ashe, she is a coconut oil kind of woman. Grease stain on the pillow, flag on the moon type woman. Pioneer of her own kinky planet, the kind who laces her two-strand twist with antenna, resourceful, frying kale in the same fat she smooths her edges with, all natural, reading the labels on bags, recycling, understands the way one thing can become another, alchemy, how the jar is filled with something like water 1 minute, something like snow the next. She's always mindful of the season. Her curls know when it's gonna rain. Her fro is the black cloud in the water cycle they forgot to draw in the textbook. Throw away your Pantene, she will, without asking. Teach you names of all the devils living in bottles at Walgreens. Her smell reminds lovers of coladas. They don't know how dry their skin is till they touch her. So this next poem, and this is like all in like the series of poems I was writing about black hair. Does anyone know Hebrew Brantley, the artist? He's a really amazing artist who's from Chicago. This is one of his paintings, and it's called Sportin' Waves High. And if anyone knows, a lot of black people, like there's, when you wear your hair short, like right now I could almost do it, almost maybe in a few weeks, is like if you brush your hair a lot, the curls start to become, instead of standing up straight, they'll kind of like wave into this really beautiful pattern. So that's what this painting is referencing. And so I wrote a poem inspired by this painting, and it's called Waves. Black boy oceanic, a baby boar bristle brush in your back pocket. Some might confuse it for a weapon, but you use it to turn solid to liquid. When you pull out your boar bristle brush, bullets turn to heavy rain. When you rub your boar bristle brush across a policeman's pale nose, he melts into a puddle of blue. You step out the barber chair with 360-degree waves. You wear the Atlantic like a crown, all our ancient bones brushed smooth. All day, you tend the waters, reach for the brush for a quick touch-up in the tinted window of a car, tie it up in black silk for safekeeping, the way God wraps his waves in the night sky. Each morning, you rewrite history on your scalp. In your version, no one drowns. So this next song I want to sing, kind of going off that theme of like taking something that I used to be really insecure about, my hair. Growing up, I wore my hair straightened, and it took me a long time to kind of learn to love my hair the way it naturally grows, or just learn to see it as beautiful. And so this song is kind of about that theme of like self-love. It's called Holy. Give me today my daily bread. Help me to walk alone ahead. Though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no love. Oh, my smile, my mind reassure me I don't need no one. Woke up this morning with my mind set on loving me. With my mind set on loving. I woke up this morning with my mind set on loving me. With my mind set on loving. Yea, the bad days may come, the lover may leave, the winter may not. Hey, the map of your palms, the temple you be, you're all that you got. The bad days may come, the lover may leave, the winter may not. The map of your palms, the temple you be, you're all that you got. Though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no love. Oh, my smile, my mind reassure me I don't need no one. I woke up this morning with my mind set on loving me. With my mind set on loving. I woke up this morning with my mind set on loving me. With my mind set on loving. Surely, 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 goodness and mercy shall follow me, shall follow me, shall follow me. So yeah, any questions or thoughts about what I've said so far? Is that on hand? Yeah, right here.
So you talked about like your hair and how you had insecurities about it, and like I feel like we all know that like in the Black community, girls go through a lot of insecurities around their hair. So could you share some ways you got through those?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great question. That question of I talked about being insecure about my hair and knowing like the standards of beauty and the ways a lot of Black women have issues feeling insecure about their hair. How did I get through that? And I think it's an evolving process. So it wasn't necessarily any moment where I felt like, oh, I'm over it, I'm beautiful. You know, it's kind of like an evolving thing. But I do think it took a lot of unlearning, like thinking back to when I learned those feelings, like, and recognizing that I didn't always feel insecure about my hair. That was something that I learned. It wasn't like, you know, this is the way I'm born, feeling insecure, and I have to like fix that. It's like, no, I learned how to not see myself as beautiful, or how to compare myself to this standard of beauty where like straighter hair is better, or, you know, like even the type of curl, like there's a better type of curly hair than like how mine was, is how I used to think. And I used to, like, even my dad, like he had really loose curls, and I was like, oh, why didn't I get curls from my dad? Why did I have to get the texture that I have? And so I think it really just took me seeking out other ways of understanding, and also learning how to take care of my hair, because that became a really fun thing. That's how I fell in love with coconut oil, was like actually taking the time to learn how to make my hair look and feel good. And that definitely related to how I felt about how I looked, is like taking that time, almost like building a relationship with a friend, weirdly enough, is like that hour that I spent twisting my hair. It's like, oh, this is really fun, and I'm learning a lot, and now I'm empowered to make how I look, to affect how I look, and not just relying on other people. So that was a big part of it. Hope that's answers a little bit. Any other questions, comments? Right here. Who's my favorite poet? Oh, that's a good question. Gwendolyn Brooks is one of my favorite poets. We talked about her a little bit earlier. I also really love Nikki Giovanni. Have any of y'all heard of Nikki Giovanni? Yeah? What's the poem you might know by her? Ego Trippin'. That's one of my favorite poems by her, but I'll talk about that later too. I love her poems especially because she's very, she just kind of tells it like it is, and like there's this sort of like sassiness to her writing that I really like. I also really love Sonia Sanchez because she does a lot of work with jazz musicians, and so her poetry has a really musicality to it. I like people who, when I read their poems out loud to myself, I can kind of like hear a rhythm in it. So, yeah. Right here?
What are some musicians you get inspiration from?
That's great. So musicians that I get inspiration from, I really like Erykah Badu. I really like how she was kind of the first person growing up that I listened to. Her and Lauryn Hill, who kind of seem to be sitting in between hip hop and like soul music or R&B music, and that's kind of where I see myself, just in terms of blending genres together and not being like, you know, tied to one genre. So those are some of my favorites. Yeah, and I like a lot of Chicago artists too. Biased about that. Yeah, right here. Oh, right here. Yeah.
Oh, in this picture, you got some nice waves.
Definitely, right? That's what I aspire to. This is my mood board, my vision map. Yeah. So when did I realize I wanted to sing and write? I always knew I wanted to sing ever since I can remember. And when I was little, I was in the children's choir. My grandma would take me to church and I would sing in it. And it's very basic, like you could sing one note like totally flat. Everyone would be like, yes, child, you're amazing, thank you. And so that was very affirming, and so that kind of like put a glimmer in me, like, okay, like I can't do these crazy runs like I can see, you know, my friends doing, but there's something that I might have that, you know, like it kind of made me believe in this dream of like being a singer one day. But I still would always like listen to Whitney Houston songs and like try to sing along and like feel like there's something that I couldn't do that kind of made me hesitant. And it wasn't until I started writing poetry that I realized that just how everyone has a story to tell about themselves that no one else can tell. Everyone has a singing voice that sounds unlike anyone else, and you won't be able to find that, or I wasn't able to find that until I stopped trying to sing like other people, until I started writing for myself and started experimenting with my voice and seeing how it could sound. So that was, I knew since I was young, but it took me a while to build the confidence to try to explore that. Yeah, maybe like one more, two more. I feel like oh sorry, yeah. I don't have my glasses, so sorry y'all. Yeah.
Was there a big event that like inspired you to start writing poetry?
To be honest, I always loved writing, so I loved to write stories. Like, I would always write short stories. Since before I could even, like, form letters, like, I would dictate them to my mom, and she would write them, so I loved writing stories. But then, in high school, there was this person I had a crush on, and they had a DeviantArt page. You wouldn't even know what that is. It's kind of like before Twitter, you would just, like, go onto this website and upload things, and he would put his poems on there, and then I was like, I can write better poems than that. He's gonna see them, real poems on there. So that was when I started writing, but from there, I got into this after-school program kind of by accident. I wanted to do the singing one, but I didn't get in, and so I got into the poetry one. And that was when I really fell in love with poetry and realized that it was something that I wanted to do. So that was kind of the big event, I guess, when I was in high school. Yeah. Cool. So I just have a few more things. What is next? Oh yes. So my name is Jamila, and ever since I was young, it's a name that, you know, it's spelled Jamila. So there's a lot of different ways people see it and say it a lot of different ways. I don't know if any of y'all feel that way about your names, but that it's hard for people to pronounce it right or even spell it right. And so I wrote a poem about that. And it's about the I in my name, because as you can see, like, Jamila is pronounced kind of like with the E sound, and so I think it's like the I in my name that might always just feel some type of way all the time when people are saying, oh. So it's called Ode to the Little I. The I in my name is always reaching for the top shelf in the grocery store, sucking in air, stretching itself, wanting to blow up. The I in my name has been trying to grow a mustache since the 3rd grade. I stands on tiptoes, envies the 2 curled biceps of E's and other Jamilas, wishes to linger longer on tongues, to not be quickly swallowed. Every Jamila is a weight on its shoulders, a thumbtack on tiptoe, a slow leak in its balloon. When they write it wrong, little I is shoved into corners as other letters are sardined in. When an extra L dangles limply from the stem of my paycheck, acceptance letter, email, little I smells its presence like a hound dog. It is a dead leaf rotting the whole pot, a firefly with its wings cut off. Jamila is an Arabic word that means beautiful. My mother and father plucked it from an African name book. In the months before she lost sight of her toes, they sat side by side on the living room couch and imagined a smaller body in between. My mother and father plucked it from an African name book. My grandmother sucked on the sound of it like a church mint. They sat side by side on the living room couch and imagined a smaller body in between. Perhaps a girl with her father's forehead and her mother's propensity for dreaming. My grandmother sucked on the sound of it like a church mint. The sanctuary was abuzz with her telling the good news. A child was coming. Perhaps a girl with her father's forehead and her mother's propensity for dreaming. She would need a name with a vowel sound worth cracking a smile over. She would need a house full of light and strong bones to be born into. In the months before she lost sight of her toes, my mother and father cracked a smile over a book on the living room couch. Jamila is an Arabic word that means beautiful. The I in my name is the ceramic lamp in the living room where my parents sat poring over a book. It is the chicken drumstick in the dinner mother ate the night before I was born, long after she lost sight of her toes. The I in my name is the gear stick in my grandmother's car before she was a grandmother. Her gold rings and acrylic nails gripped the lever as she sped to the hospital with my past due mother in the back seat. When they say it wrong, the little I bristles like a church lady with her hat knocked off. I will no longer tell you it rhymes with tequila. The I in my name thinks you should listen harder. The I in my name thinks you should learn to spell. The I in my name thinks it's okay to be unsure, to ask again. The I in my name has meat on its bones, electricity in its bulb, gas in its tank. Thank you. So in some instances, I've tried to take some of the things I write poems about and try to write songs about them. So this is one example of that, and it's a song about my name called In My Name. I like to make you wash your mouth before you talk about me. Keep my name out your mouth 'cause you can't handle the flea. Don't cut your tongue on my syllables. Bet you need a syllabus. Teach you how my vowels sound. It's a long E, baby, but your tongue too lazy. Need to fix your face and say your grace before you pray to me. In my name, 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 in my name. Somebody better come get their cousin. Shorty, honey, sweetie, I swear that wasn't what my mama gave me. Let me speak more slowly. My name, in 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 my name. Cool. So just a couple more before we end. So this is that poem, Black Girl Art, and it's written after a poem called Black Art by Amiri Baraka, and it's basically about my, about why I do what I do. Poems are meaningless unless they are eyeglasses. Honey tea with lemon, hot water bottles on tummies. I want poems my grandma wants to tell the ladies at church about. I want orange potato words soaking in the pot till their skins fall off, words you burn your tongue on, words on sale 2 for 1, words that keep my feet dry. I want to hold a poem in my fist in the alley just in case. I want a poem for dude at the bus stop. Oh, you can't talk, ma? Words to make the body inside my body less invisible. Words to teach my sister how to brew remedies in her mouth. Words that grow mama's hair back. Words to detangle the kitchen. I won't write poems unless they are an instruction manual, a bus card, warm shea butter on elbows, water, a finger massage to the scalp, a broomstick, sometimes used for cleaning, and sometimes to soar. And this, one more piece before I maybe do just a few more questions and maybe sing this when I can at the end. This is called Black Girl Soldier. See, she's telepathic, call it black girl magic. Yeah, she scares the government, deja vu atomic. We gon' miss him by the hundreds. Ain't nobody checking for us, ain't nobody checking for us. The camera loves us, Oscar doesn't. Ain't nobody checking for us, they want us in the kitchen. Kill our sons with lynchings. We get loud about it, oh now we're the bad ones. Look at what they did to my sister last century, last week. They put her body in a jar and forget her. They love how it repeats. Look at what they did to my sister last century, last week. They make her hate her own skin, treat her like a sin. Oh, why? But what they don't understand, see what they don't understand is, yeah, what they don't understand. See what they don't understand is she's telepathic. Call it black girl magic. Yeah, she scares the government. Deja vu atomic. And she don't give up. Yeah, she don't give up. She don't give up. Na, she don't give up. Rosa was a freedom fighter and she taught us how to fight. Ella was a freedom fighter, she taught us how to fight. Audrey was a freedom fighter and she taught us how to fight. Angela is a freedom fighter and she taught us how to fight. And she don't give up. Yeah, she don't give up. She don't give up. Na, she don't give up. Thank you all so much. If there's maybe time for like 1 or 2 more questions, and then if anyone has questions still who I missed. Yeah, right here. How long does it take to complete a poem? Sometimes if I've been doing the work every day to like prepare myself to be writing, like if I'm journaling a lot or reading a lot, then I can kind of sit down in one sitting and write a good first draft of a poem. But I feel like compared to some people I know, I don't write poems every day. I sometimes need to like marinate on a poem for a while, so I might be thinking or watching a documentary or reading, but all of that is like kind of part of the writing. So in that sense, it can take a lot longer if I count all the time I'm thinking about how I'm going to write it before I actually write it. Yeah. see, do I ever go back and look at old pieces and get inspiration? I definitely do, because sometimes I look back and I'm like, this is trash, but I think I could do it better now. And so that's a really cool thing when I go back, because I like this quote where it's like, you don't always have to enter a poem through the front door. So maybe the first time I tried to write a poem about my hair, I did it maybe in the first way that came to my head. Maybe that was the front door. But if I go back, I can figure out a new way into telling that same story, which is fun to do. Yeah. Yes, I have that in my plan. One more question? Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question about why some movements like Black Girl Magic get seen as taking away from other races or groups of people. And I think that just comes from, there's like a scarcity mentality where sometimes if someone else is getting shine, you feel like that's less shine for you. But really, there's no reason for the world to be set up where only some people get to have shine or be made to feel important. So yeah, I think that's my opinion on it. I know it's almost time's up, so I can sing a little bit.